We are live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Blake Ruffino. This is Are You Serious Sports. We hope that you guys are making it a good one. We know that we are as well. Huge show in store for you tonight. Bech, LSU wide receiver, hits the transfer portal. Who follows him, if anybody? We'll talk on that tonight. Look, guys, I mean, you're building to a national title. When you have guys like Kayshon Boutte returning, I do believe that there will be others that return with him that maybe, not saying you don't believe that they won't, but maybe you don't think is coming back. Maybe some of them follow Kayshon Boutte, but nevertheless, Bech is entering the portal. We will touch on that here tonight, gearing up for that title run. Guys, there are some things that I'm hearing out and about in reference to how LSU is building. You know, look, I think as of today now, 1,100 kids have hit the transfer portal, somewhere in that nature. Good googly moogly. I think LSU can build back. They are going to close the gap on Georgia quicker than maybe some anticipate. So I'm going to give my thoughts why I believe LSU is completely gearing up for that title run. We'll talk here tonight. Memphis Spence, your favorite, one of your favorites, along with Carter the Bower Bryant, joins us here at 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. We always get into a lot of things with Memphis. It's been good to kick it around and talk with him in reference to everything that's going on around college football. Oh, and I forgot to add this. Guys, we will start the show. Producers, leave now if you may, but we will start the show over with the Ruffino's Rants. Today, AYS battled the USC faithful. So we will add a Ruffino's Rants into this to start off the show, as I have asked Lindell White, our good buddy. I still love Lindell. And I was told the feeling is mutual. But there's a debate out there about Caleb Williams. I'm going to say my piece here today as we have the Heisman Trophy award ceremony coming up here in the next couple of days. I'm going to give my piece. Stats, I don't look at the stats always when I look at who I believe should win the Heisman. Nevertheless, it kind of went a little viral today on my beliefs of what I would do and what I said that really pissed off some USC fans. And to that point, let me just start off by apologizing to absolutely freaking nobody. We do what we want here. I mean, look at Pooh Bear. You can't see him. He's wearing a damn Christmas hat. I don't know if Pooh's family watches this, so I'm going to be careful what I say here. Never mind. I don't want Pooh to get mad at me. And you got Zach looking like he should be in the movie Fury, Brad Pitt. Anywho, Zach, Pooh Bear, and Blake apologizes to nobody for what we say. The champs do what they want, damn it. So we will touch on Caleb Williams and the viral stuff that went here today. So, oh, good Lord. Lucy, DM him. I mean, look, this guy right here, you see Zach, this guy right here, he's single. Zach, are you ready to mingle? Lucy wants it.
I'm down.
Jesus Christ. Your daddy watches this show. I talked to your daddy yesterday too, by the way, Zach. He says, Blake, why is my son getting home so late? I'm like, Pastor, how in the hell am I supposed to know? Yeah, Lucy be on it. So let's get to a couple comments before we get started. Lars Carville. I think it's Lucy loves about to hit the portal. All right, move on from Lucy. She's, Lars Carville says Jane Daniels is frustrating to watch sometimes. Okay. David says, do we lose Howard now that Bech is in the portal? We'll touch on that if you ask me later in the show. Penn Jones says Caleb Williams lacks character. Penn, quite honestly, it's a lot as to why me and Lindell White got into it today. If look, talk to him. He knows he's more than welcome to debate it. But you can't go out there, in my opinion, with your fingernails painted saying, fuck Utah. and think that there's not consequences for your actions. If he would not have done that, I would say yes, vote him for Heisman. I'm not going to play that. And it's my opinion. It's just my opinion. Carville again says Alabama players hitting the portal because Nick Saban acted like a clown begging for a playoff spot. Lars, that is not the reason why they're hitting the portal. That is not even remotely close. Not even remotely close. Josh says on Facebook, do we have a chance to get Nicholas Harbor? I think that you have a chance. The ultimate question is how big of a chance is that? I know that Michigan is heavily involved. Some have said South Carolina is inching into that. Now, the Bell, their tight end, has hit the portal. I don't, well, you know what? What I would tell you is subscribe to the AYS network. We've had 117 people subscribe to the AYSSnetwork.com/forum over the last 2 days. 117. Unreal, man. Unreal. Thank you. We're blessed. So we're going to continue to have fun with it. Chad says, if stats were everything shouldn't Zappy have won the Heisman after breaking Burrow's TD record? Well, I'm not going to say that, but look, like CJ Stroud and CJ Stroud should be number 2 in this, and I don't think he gets number 2. Lamar Williams, big pressure in the building, says Zach should be in a Grease movie remake. He does look like John Travolta. Staying alive, ha 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 ha. There are a lot of things that Zach looks like right now that I can't, Anywho, Jeremy Hyde says, let's go, Blake, since 499 via Super Chat. Thank you so much for sending that, Jeremy. We greatly appreciate it. Everybody that sends us Super Chats and stars on Facebook, we appreciate it. If I look like JT, I'm assuming he means Justin Timberlake. Pooh would never say this. I'm good with it. You don't look like Justin Timberlake. You look like Zac Efron without the new teeth and the fake abs. And don't say, come on, man. I can read your lips. I'm trained. I'm a trained professional. All right, a couple more, then we'll get rolling. By the way, did y'all see the Saints last night? Bro, fire Dennis Allen. Did y'all watch the Saints last night? Me and my wife have season tickets. I'm not going to another one. Nope. Mm-mm. I'm selling the rest of the season. I'm not going to another fucking game. Not another game. I'm not doing it. All right, last one, then we'll get rolling. Dustin Jenkins says, ask Blake. Blake, I don't think all 3 quarterbacks come back. If JD5 returns, does not hit Nuss hit the portal. If JD5 leaves, I think Nuss comes back. Thoughts, insight. I just wanted to reread that. I don't think you're wrong. I don't think you're wrong on some of it. But what if? Let's get to that after the break. I mean, because guys, this isn't gonna stop. All right, this is Pooh. Pooh Bear says, "What's that movie about the cowboys in the mountains?" Oh, Brokeback Mountain. Brokeback Mountain. Says that fits Zach. God, Pooh, that's about Oh, Pooh, the producers are gonna fight after the show. Thad says, Blake, what's the best website to follow recruiting? AYSSnetwork.com. AYSSnetwork.com. And right behind that, it's tigerbait.com. They're kind of equal. That's what I believe. Cedric Ross says, ask Blake, do you think we'll get any players out of the portal? Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We'll talk about that out of the break. All right, let's do this, guys. Let's get to it. Everybody do us a favor by hitting the like and share. So many of you are tuning in to us on Facebook. We greatly appreciate it. Hit the like and share. Share those Facebook groups. Share to your social media pages. Guys, and we're so close to getting 5,000 subscribers on YouTube. Like, subscribe, notification bell, all of that good stuff. Do us a favor by doing that. We greatly appreciate you joining there. XM Radio, TuneIn app, everywhere you listen to podcasts, rate, review, subscribe as well. Shout out to our good friends over at Believe Radio and XM Radio as well. All right, let's do this. Let's pay these bills. We'll be back in 1 minute. Talk about our good friends over at betonline.ag, our good buddies over at GM Varno and Sons. We return. You're not going to want to miss Ruffino's Rants, Jack Bech. Does anybody enter with him? After this, we'll talk about it next. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag. With over 65 years of experience, nobody is better equipped to service in your vehicle than GM Varno & Sons. RV repair, big rig overhauls, motorhome chassis, routine maintenance, tire rotations, tire sales. No job is too big or too small over at GM. If you break down the side of the road in the greater Baton Rouge area, they will come and get you. And the best thing about that is that they can come and get you, and then they can bring your vehicle back to their shop and start the repairs right then. Again, GM Varno & Sons. Go see them over at 2500 Fuller Boulevard. Give them a call at 225-664-9992. 225-664-9992. Tell them your good friend Blake Ruffino sent you on by. All right. Jeremy Hyde said he just subscribed. Fire. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you so much for subscribing to the message board. All right, let's get into this because we got a lot to get into, so let's roll through it. Rick says, just because Jack entered the portal doesn't mean he's gone, right? That does mean that technically he could end up staying. Rick, let me say this, and I mean this holistically. I mean this from the bottom of my heart. I mean this in the utmost respect to Jack Bech. Number one, I appreciate Jack Bech for everything that he's done for LSU. It's very tough what he's going through. You know, this season alone, you know, Jack has had concussions. He's had a leg fracture. I mean, he's had so much. And Jack's in a sticky situation. Sometimes, even though I disagree with this, I believe that Brian Kelly fully believes, and Mike Denbrock and Cortez Hankton, that Jack might be a little bit out of not a perfect fit at times for what it is that they want to do. Look at the recruits and look at the guys that they're going to get out of the portal. Look at the guys that they're getting out of the portal and out of high school. Let's look at the guys that they have committed in high school right now. Shelton Sampson, tall guy, but extremely fast. Great hands, can come down with it. Kyle Parker from Lovejoy, who's probably the biggest steal on this LSU commitment list. If you go watch his film, is absolutely ridiculous. And then obviously you have Jaylen Brown, who can just take the top off. He kind of reminds me of Deshaun Jackson at times when you watch him play. Maybe not as physical and maybe doesn't have just the outright elite explosiveness, but that's him. Jack Bech, if you noticed, he's a tight end in a wide receiver's body. He's a tight end in a wide receiver's body. And nevertheless, it's not Jack's fault. Now, we had a question earlier about Walker Howard. Does he enter because him and Jack? I don't know. What I will tell you this, and this is the ultimate thing before we get to this Ruffino's Rants, the ultimate thing about Brian Kelly and the recruiting your own players and the quarterback situation. Let me make this very well known. If you're going to make $100 million guaranteed, $90 million guaranteed, whatever it was, I think it was $90 million, it is his job to execute at a high level what happens with the quarterback position. If it's me and Jane Daniels does return to LSU, I am not playing him in the bowl game. JD's giving you way far and then enough to where you don't have to run him out there for a meaningless bowl game. Well, Blake, we need to get to 10 wins. I agree with you. I would love for us to get to 10 wins, not on the back of hurting what could be your starting quarterback a season ago or in a season from now in less than, let's just call it, because we're in December, in less than 7 months or 8 months. No, I don't want Jaden running out there in a bowl that doesn't mean a damn thing. Now, what do you do? What do you do with Walker Howard and Garrett Nussmeier? So the question becomes, do you let them battle it out during bowl practices? Because in my opinion, Walker Howard's not a freshman anymore. He's not a freshman anymore. And I've said this on the show, and I will continue to say it. When it comes to all-around quarterback talent, arm strength, accuracy, just being a quarterback, I think that Walker Howard has the most talent than all three of the quarterbacks. That does not mean he will be the best quarterback, though. You get paid a lot of money to figure out exactly what you need to do. I will say this. There will be things that you hear, and this is the last thing I'm going to say as of tonight, unless something happens. The last thing I will say, and I think that I want you to really, really listen. So whatever you're doing, stop. Listen. And I mean this a lot. Whatever's going to be best for LSU, not just for next season, but in the future, you roll with it. You roll with it. So, regardless of what your opinions may be, your opinions mean nothing when it comes to the future of LSU. Roll with who you know is going to lead you to a promised land. So I will end it with that one. I will end it with that one. Jack Bech going to the portal, it stinks. But, as the old saying goes in the state of Louisiana, as much as – and look, Pooh Bear Zach, I said this last Thursday, did I not? Or Wednesday, did I not? I said there was going to be guys that you think are LSU dudes through and through, they're going to hit the portal. We talked about that on Wednesday at probably, what, guys, 7 minutes? Probably 5 to 7 minutes. We talked about guys that you know and you felt as if for LSU dudes that will hit the portal. Jack Bech enters today. I don't know where he's going. Florida makes a little bit of sense because the connection that Billy Napier has with individuals in the state of Louisiana. I don't think that LSU is in a position where they have to go out there and legitimately recruit Jack Bech back to come to this team. You have Shelton Sampson coming. What does LSU do in the portal? You have Jaylen Brown coming, which will have a massive recruiting piece on the network on our website tomorrow. I talked to 3 recruits today. 3 recruits today talking about Brian Kelly and recruiting and being an LSU Tiger. You have a massive amount of recruits coming in. Sucks for Walker. It's because that's his best friend. Sucks for Jack Bech. I'm sure he wanted to always be an LSU Tiger. But yeah. Adam says, and Dwayne says, Nuss is the guy. It's funny because we got Nuss is the guy, and then we got Adam Keene says Nuss is a turnover machine. It's a 50-50 in the fan base. It's a 50-50. Regardless of what you believe, it doesn't matter what we think. It doesn't matter if you believe. What is Brian Kelly's stance here? Because there isn't anybody on that team right now that I've seen that, if just raw, I'm talking about unadulterated raw talent better than 14. Throwing the football. There's not one. Let's see what happens here. Let's see what happens. Nevertheless, I want to get to 2 things very quickly. Number one. So if you missed it today, it kind of went viral. So I do want to mention it. I don't want to spend long on it, but I do want to mention it. Today, myself and Lindell White got into a little bit of an altercation in reference to Caleb Williams. Now, this morning I said, and if you missed it, if you didn't watch the Pac-12 championship game, the USC quarterback, the 5-star quarterback, Caleb Williams, painted his fingernails. Yeah, you're listening to me right. Painted his fingernails, and on one finger it says fuck, and on the other hand, I should say, one hand said F, the other hand said Utah. I have a problem with that. You can say Blake is, acting, get off my lawn, and Blake doesn't like the kid, and Blake's soft, and Blake just doesn't like the kid. It's bullshit. And to every USC fan that was in my DMs today, that was ripping me alive on Twitter, I don't hate Caleb Williams, but repercussions have to happen. When you write fuck Utah on your fingernails, I don't care if you've been doing it since Oklahoma. I don't care. In the game of sport, you have to have a level of respect for your opponent. And quite honestly, you wrote F Utah on your nails and you got hurt and they kicked your ass. Is Caleb Williams more than likely going to win the Heisman on Saturday? Yep. Does he deserve it of the integrity of the award? No. So to Lindell White, to Caleb Williams, who liked to tweet, to everybody who thinks that Caleb Williams deserves to be the Heisman Trophy contender, in my opinion, I wouldn't give it to him. I think I think Hendon Hooker got snubbed. I think Max Duggan, Stetson Bennett, whoever, CJ Stroud, whoever. You can't do stuff like that. I don't give a shit if he had 37 touchdown passes, Lindell. I really don't. I don't care what Pete did and didn't allow. But if Caleb Williams and Lindell White are going to like to tweet and quote tweet us about who I believe should win the Heisman, I don't care. You can't write. Listen to this. It's the same thing about this, and I made this comparison. Do you remember a season ago when Ed Orgeron and LSU went to UCLA, and Ed Orgeron's walking through the Rose Bowl, and a UCLA fan is heckling Ed Orgeron and said something about him having sex with blonde women, and Ed Orgeron looks up and says, "Why don't you come down here and take that sissy blue shirt off?" The LA media went bananas. BANANAS went bananas. But what they don't go bananas over is a guy that's got an NIL deal from Beats by Dre, and a man that paints his fingernails and writes fuck Utah on him. There's levels to this. You can go out there all you want and write and do whatever you want, but you have to take the consequences and the repercussions for your actions for people who may or may not be Heisman voters. Memphis Spence joins us in 5 minutes. I don't know if he's a Heisman voter or not, but I'm going to ask Memphis the first question out of the gate. Memphis, would you vote for an individual who's actively out there on the field saying F his opponent while painting his fingernails? Because I'm not voting for him, and you can't make me do it. Pete can't make me do anything. There's a level of professionalism, and here's the biggest thing. When you put that uniform on, I'm going to sound like Herman Boone from Remember the Titans. When you put that Titan uniform on, you come to work. You don't fucking write F Utah on your fingernails. There's a level of respect that comes to this game that I love. Well, Blake, they curse on the field. You're damn right. I played the game. High school, college, it doesn't matter. What I'm not doing is the name on my back and the name on my front means more in the respect level of what you're portraying than anything else. Blake, you're wearing LSU and you're saying the F word. I don't represent LSU. I represent the little 3-year-old that runs around here every day saying Mama whipped him because he won't listen. I represent my wife. I represent my family. I represent this business. On the top pinned tweet of Caleb Williams' Twitter, it says, "I'm not about business. I'm business, man," or whatever it is that he says. Sounds good, but you individualize yourself. You want to come at USC fans, and Lindell, you want to come after me, you better bring the heat. Let's roll with it. I love my dude Lindell. I love Lindell White more than you know. More than you know. Levels. All right. What else were we getting to? we got a lot of comments, but Caleb Williams can kick the road for all level of respect. When you put that Titan uniform on, you come to work. You know that's the first movie I watch August the 1st every year. Ask my wife. It's the first movie I watch. I go full Herman Boone on people. Full Herman Boone on people. Boy, you don't get blood on my uniform. See, Megan gets mad because I quote that movie like 600 times a day. You pick this ball up. Anyway, God, I love that movie so much. I wish I would have known Herman Boone. I wish I would have met Herman Boone in person. You know how they ask people, you know, if you could have dinner with some people, like if there's 3 people you can have dinner with, it's my grandfather that I never met. One of them's Herman Boone. That movie, it's kind of out there, but I loved it. All right, American Base said Bech originally committed to Vandy. I'm guessing he can go there just to guess. It'd be interesting to see how much Florida gets involved with Jack Bech. Very interesting to see how involved Group of 5 Billy Napier, who can't win in the SEC yet, gets involved with Jack Bech. Lars Carville says Jane Daniels is not going to be better next year. He's peaked, in my opinion. I don't agree with you. Here's the thing. Lars, I double dog dare you. I double dog dare you to go to watch just the highlights of Jane Daniels LSU in the first half. Here's the truth. If you're Ohio State, you're jumping for a little bit of joy. Look, and I'll ask Memphis this. LSU exposed Georgia's defense. They exposed them. Truth be told, Ohio State has more depth than LSU. Do they have overall talent? Jane Daniels ripped them alive. Guys, Jane Daniels had 208 passing yards in the first half, and you want to come in here and tell me that he had a bad half? Blake, you only scored 10 points. Sounds good. Sounds good. You should have gone into half 21-10. Not 35-10. That's not all on him. It's not all on him. Oh, God. Jamie Hodges says, Denver Harris, ? Look, kind of on the same lines, not as much, though, to me. There comes a fine line, right? Like there becomes a fine line of, if you don't know who Denver Harris is, he's a Texas A&M defensive back. He posted on Instagram him speeding through a parking lot, could have killed somebody. You know, it was widely reported that there might have been an incident with him in the locker room and the little green leaf that's smokable. So, no, I mean, you know, there's a culture that's being built. And this is the last thing that I want to say before I got to Memphis Spence. We're getting to him in just a second. Is you're building towards a title, right? You got Keyshawn Boutte coming back. You have some other guys that we know it's looking really good that they're coming back, and that the team is really building on that they want to win a national title. With that all being said, Brian Kelly knows what he's doing by recruiting his own team to return, going out there and adding a massive amount of high school pieces, and they're going to get probably 8 to 10 guys in the transfer portal to get to the 85. Guys, LSU is going to be a problem next year. I guarantee you that. And if Memphis Spence, I'm going to get on him about this. If he doesn't have LSU in his top 7, and I want him to put LSU at 7 to begin the season. If Memphis Spence does not put LSU at number 7 to start the season, he's never allowed back. Never allowed back. I won't let him. You know what I'll do? I might call his wife and say, Mrs. Spence, Memphis is being mean. All right. Let's get to him. Let's talk about our good friend Carol Falls over at State Farm. We'll get to him now, but let me talk about our good friends over at Synergy Resources LLC. Go to their website today, synergyresllc.net. That's Synergy, resllc.net. pipes, hoses, fittings. They do it all. Looking for some jobs, looking for employment. Give them a call today and ask our good friend Tully. Again, that's Synergy Resources. Connect with them at synergyresllc.net. Let them know that Blake Ruffino sent you on by. Carol Falls, 45 seconds. Memphis Spence, next. Guys, you might know my good friend Carol Falls and all the great service that he provides over at State Farm. He is your good neighbor after all. But did you know State Farm has surprisingly great rates as well? Along with the great neighbor service, State Farm agent Carol Falls has surprisingly great rates for everyone inside the state of Louisiana. So call him today at 985-395-4300, 985-395-4300 for all of those surprisingly great rates on auto, home, and life insurance needs. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there, and individual premiums will vary by customer. All applicants subject to the State Farm underwriting requirements. I forgot to bring him up. If you don't have LSU in your top 7 in the beginning of next year, me and you have a problem. Memphis, what's happening?
What? I come on the show and you hold me hostage?
Yes.
The first thing you do is hold me hostage? Okay, Blake. All right.
Yes, it's
Listen,
what we do.
LSU may get there on their own merits, but like I tell everybody, I'm not somebody who roots for somebody or doesn't root for somebody. I'm somebody who gives credit where credit is due. Even when I'm always trying to look through the nonsense, like, oh, Brian Kelly's dancing. Does that mean he can't coach? Stuff like that. Like if they're a top 10 team, they'll be in my top 10. Plain and simple. And there's still some stuff that they need to do to get there next year.
All
still
right.
Do.
We'll get to that. What does it mean to you, though? And this is how I want to transition to this. When you saw Kayshon Boutte is returning to LSU and Brian Kelly's staff, so let me ask you, as a voter, going into bowl season, going into next season, how big is that for you to weigh in? Now, you're right. They got to get some interior depth on the defensive line. There's other things that they got to do. Defensive backs, they got to get better there. But when you see a guy like that, let me ask you this, Memphis, in a 2-part question. Number one, what does it tell you about what's going on in that locker room? And then number 2, what does that make you feel as if, okay, well, shit, LSU might start to close the gap more than what we saw in 2020 and 2021?
If Kayshon Boutte wants to come back,
he announced he is.
But what that means is, if somebody like that wants to come back, because think about all the players at that high profile that don't want to come back, but if he wants to come back, that means that locker room is pretty solid. You're not going to come back to a locker room where there's a lot of dysfunction. You're not even going to go back to a program where you feel you can't grow anymore. So he's going back to LSU because he feels he can grow, number one. And number 2, he wants to be there. And if Kayshon Boutte, if somebody that high profile wants to be there, there's a lot of other that speaks volumes for a lot of other people, including folks that are entering the transfer portal right now.
Like what?
It means that I can succeed here. Regardless of the noise, he understands Brian Kelly enough to know that he can grow in this program. He can grow at LSU. And if he can do it, he's going to challenge everybody he practices against, all the other receivers. And he's going to, a rising tide lifts all ships. He's going to work harder next year. I think they got a taste this year of what it could be, because they had to sit through the noise. And, when you're 18, 19, 20, you don't know what to believe. People were talking out the side of their heads. Some people were like, "Oh, Kelly can't recruit. Oh, Kelly couldn't do it at LSU. At Notre Dame. Why do you think he can do it at LSU?" And people read, people listen to talking heads. People listen to my colleagues. But then there's like the reality. There's the reality of Kelly only has a couple of seasons that he's lost more than 8 games. Kelly's always been on the cusp of doing it. Except he's had Cincinnati talent. He's had Notre Dame talent, but now he has LSU talent. I mean, there's that. There are levels to this, and he's climbing. The reason why he's at LSU is he knows that there are levels to this. He sees the talent. He's like, okay, what can I do with this talent? I can get to New Year's Six games. I can get to Cotton Bowls and Rose Bowls and everything else with Cincinnati and Notre Dame. But can I win a national championship with LSU? That's why he's there. He's not there for any other reason. So I think he's serious. Kayshawn obviously thinks he's serious if he's announced that. I think that when you see major players come back that have, Kayshawn can get in the transfer portal, end up at Alabama. I'm not sure Alabama has – Kayshawn would start at Alabama.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. They flirted with him all off season, and if it wouldn't have been for NIL, he probably would have been there, and probably, Bryce probably would have had more success. They might have been in over Ohio State versus, them sitting on the outside looking in. Memphis, it's interesting you say that, because when you say that, when you see all these kids, 1,000 kids have entered the portal in 2 days officially. Yeah. And so when you see that, and some kids won't land anywhere, and you see probably at worst a second-round pick in the draft, which after what he did to Georgia, which I'm going to get to you about LSU and Georgia in just a minute, he wasn't playing around with Georgia. And I will tell you, if I'm Ryan Day, I'm watching that film and saying, shit. Right? Like, so let me ask you this question now to transition to Georgia LSU. When you saw like Kayshawn Boutte returning, and look, a 20-point loss is, LSU got blown out. They got, they let somebody put up 50. Memphis, the game's a little bit closer than because if you don't have the blocked field goal, if you don't throw an interception when you're down 20 and you're only down 13 and you get a 3 and out, gaps maybe not be as far as some people think. But let me ask you this. You're a very smart man. Does Ryan Day lick his chops when he sees that with a guy like Marvin Harrison on his team?
Of course he does.
Skippy he does. Damn Skippy he does.
Of course he does. And I mean, that I was on your show last week, and I told you, like, if Georgia gets one of those crazy turnovers in the first half, that's the margin that you can't overcome. A pass bouncing off of somebody's helmet into, you can't. They've been getting those all season, and one day they're not. I'm hoping maybe the one time where they were, they didn't get anything, nothing dumb happened was Missouri, really, and that game was very close. But in all of these games, I'm looking at like, how is, why wouldn't anybody? You play to the whistle. Why wouldn't anybody, what? I don't understand some of the things that happen in some of these Georgia games where, people just.
If you go and look at it, Georgia's entire team. Go on. I would rewatch the play today. The entire Georgia team ran to the sideline besides number 29 or whoever it is. The only reason that they scored was him and Jalen Carter was walking off the field, and Kirby Smart was chewing his ass for walking off the field. He turns around and lights an LSU guy up. So, both teams were running to the sideline.
Yeah.
It took one guy to be like, you know what? I'm just gonna pick it. I'm gonna pick this bitch up. I'm gonna see. They ain't blow the whistle yet.
I didn't hear a whistle.
I didn't hear no whistle. So it was. But here's my thing, Memphis, and I want to break that game down with you. It's of my belief. I said this Saturday night. I said this Sunday. I said this yesterday. I think LSU exposed Georgia to levels that I don't think that a LSU team that doesn't have the depth can beat them. But I think Ohio State can, because the truth is, if you just throw it all around, they got the dudes. They got the dudes to do it. And I think that their defense holistically is a little bit better than LSU's. Memphis, I go into that game and I ask myself, hey, now.
Listen, there's a couple of and let's be honest, Alabama could beat them. There's a lot of
Alabama could beat them. Bryce could
Alabama could beat them.
Right.
Alabama could beat them. Ohio State can beat them. They're not like some unbeatable team. I
They're
mean,
not last year's defense. They're not last year's defense, correct?
No. I mean, Will Anderson's still a monster. Don't get me wrong. I still voted for him in the Bronco Nagurski Award, but
which he won today, correct?
Yeah, exactly. But I'm not. That's their defense last year was something I'd never seen on paper before. Like I was like, this is one of the best college defenses that I've seen ever. This defense is great. It's not last year's defense. It's not. There are some holes there. There are some issues, especially on the edges, that I'm just like, man, if this has been exposed, and when you're talking about elite receivers, Marvin Harrison Jr., Kayshon Boutte, I mean, those dudes are the types of dudes that last year they could line up with anybody. This year
they can't do it. They can't do it.
Yeah, it's
Memphis. Malik Neighbors went off on Keely Ringo. Brother, here's the God's honest truth. I said this about Florida State when LSU played them in week 1. I don't care that they played Dookie Kane. They rushed for 400 yards and LSU got beat.
Yeah.
Georgia gave up 500 yards in the air. Memphis, a half 1,000.
I know.
That is a problem. It's a massive
especially when you're seeing. Well, here's the thing. Like, has Georgia outside? And I mean, now it's comical because Hendon Hooker is not a finalist, but they haven't really seen a dynamic offense like LSU, and there are better offenses right now than LSU's, and those are the things that you have to think about. I mean, yeah, they played Kentucky. Is Kentucky's offense really dynamic? No. They played Tennessee. Tennessee's offense is great. Their defense ain't that great. There's a lot of things. They haven't really played a complete team like a Michigan or a Ohio State, Alabama even. Alabama has holes. Nobody's unbeatable this year. There's a lot of last year, I was like, okay, this is pretty easy. It's Georgia. This year I'm like, it's Georgia, but they are beatable. There are ways to beat Georgia. And I don't know if Ryan Day's game plan for the Michigan game was so bad that I'm just like, I don't know. I know on paper, Ohio State looks great. Could they beat Georgia? Absolutely. They have all the personnel to do it. I'm wondering if Ryan Day comes up with the right plan to actually do that, though. Because
here's the thing, though, Memphis. LSU hit the passes that Tennessee couldn't to Jalen.
That's true.
Okay.
That's true.
Here would be my ultimate question.
Yeah.
What if they did? You see what I'm saying? Like, what if
Tennessee hit those passes? They probably would have won the game.
They're in big trouble. And here's where I look at Ohio State. I want to get to TCU and Memphis. TCU and Michigan with you.
Yeah.
Here's the thing for me that separates Ohio State from Georgia. Their offensive line, I get it. Ohio State has had times where they've been bad, but they can run the football more efficiently than LSU can.
Yeah, they can.
So if you're able to hit Marvin Harrison Jr. on that post route, like what LSU did with Malik Neighbors, then Memphis, I promise you, I know I'm not crazy. They can
post
win.
route is open though because they can run the ball. That's the reason why the linebacker is coming up to the line. They can run the ball. That's why the post is open, and that's like I said. And we know this, and I'm just like, and I was looking at the game plan for Michigan with Ryan Day, and I was like, this was terrible. Like, what do they do? They're not even. Michigan's beatable. We saw that with Illinois the other week, and I'm just like, did you not even watch that game? Sometimes I sit there and I'm just like, I know these guys are getting paid a lot, and I get it's stressful and everything else, but there's blueprints basically on everybody's team, and at the end of the year, everybody knows what the strengths and weaknesses are.
Right.
Ohio State has all the pieces to be able to beat Georgia. The only question is going to be whether or not Ryan Day actually puts it a plan in place to actually use those pieces to take away the speed of the Georgia linebackers. Because all you have to do is beat the Georgia linebackers and you beat Georgia. All you have to do is beat if you can neutralize if Will Anderson doesn't know what he's doing pre-snap, you've probably got 5 yards. If he and his comrades know what's going on, you might have -2. And those are the games that you have to play. But he has to figure out how to neutralize those linebackers. You can do it with the rushing game and then go over the top with those post routes, like you were saying. I mean, there are a lot of ways, and they have all the pieces to do it, but they still have to do it because that game plan is the same game plan you could have beat Michigan with, and they didn't do it. So I'm like, Georgia might actually skate around because Ryan Day is just, I don't know what he's doing in terms of game planning. But I watched that game and I was like, and I went back and watched it. I was like, why on earth wouldn't you use Marvin Harrison Jr. a little bit more coming over the middle than how you're trying to use him on an island out there? And you don't, I mean, given you basically, they were doing Michigan's job defensively for them. I was like, lose those guys. You know, Michigan's corners aren't as fast as Marvin Harrison. Drag them across the middle and lose some guys in coverage, and then make them tackle that man. They didn't do any of that stuff. I don't know, man. Sometimes, like I said, I get frustrated with watching some games, and it's kind of wild.
Where does LSU separate themselves? How can they close the gap? Where do you think when you see them go up against the absolute best, where can they close the gap? Because I don't think they're that far. They're
not that far. So LSU has a lot of young guys, right? They have a lot of talented guys.
3 freshman All-American, by the way.
Kelly said this a couple of times during the season, we got out-coached. And I wholeheartedly believe that was true. Because there are some things I'm just like, okay, there are mistakes that you see on the field, not because the guys aren't talented, they're just not doing either what they were supposed to do.
Well. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And you have to do those things well in order not to make these big mistakes, these game-changing mistakes. And those are the things, it's those fundamental things that I'm just like, all right, you know, this needs to, if they can close these things. And then again, you may have a very good offensive line next year, but they have to know what they're doing on every down. Because there's some confusion. I see some confusion on the line. I'm like, you know, you can't let that guy run free up the B gap. That's not.
They blame Jane Daniels on somebody missing an assignment on the O line. People that fans that aren't smart enough to realize that they missed an assignment are going to blame Jane Daniels more than that. And to Garrett Nussmeier's credit, the same thing happened with him. So I don't, you know, I mean, it either replace the quarterback. I mean, it doesn't matter, but they're missing those small assignments. Memphis, they didn't rotate defensive line. I think the defensive line has to get better. You miss Mason Smith, probably one of the best defensive tackles in the country, that brutalizes you up front.
Yeah, there's some injuries too.
You know, look, Memphis, I said that. So look, me and USC, I'll just call it USC as a whole, got in a dispute today. I said my key to victory was you got to make Stetson Bennett beat you. And all he did was, to me, he said, hey, Blake. And he dropped the mic on me because he beat me through the air. LSU's got to get to that. That's where they have to, their biggest weaknesses, defensive line depth and DBs, correct?
Yeah. And a lot of it isn't a lot of it's mistakes.
Boneheaded mistakes.
You know, they're mistakes, and you're just like, why are they making these types of mistakes at the end of the season? You make those mistakes against Florida State game 1, that's one thing. You make those mistakes game 9, 10. There's really game why 13, are you making these mistakes?
Game 13. You know,
right.
I mean,
right. You can't. Those mistakes can't be. There has to be a level of discipline. And Kelly's going to bring that. But there has to be a level of, and it's either discipline or coaching. It's one or the other. That they remember what to do in those moments, and not what was Mr. Go 30 say, piss down their leg. They have to know, they have to know what to do in those moments and not do that, right? They can't just have a brain fart, out there and forget, to block in, kick out. That doesn't, you get those are little things that you have to know how to do.
All right.
And by the way, I heard your segment coming up. I do not have a Heisman vote. I do have a Maxwell vote. I do have a Maxwell.
Well, so me and Lindell White, my buddy, I love him. I love him to death.
Mm-hmm.
But they're mad at me because I said that you can't write F Utah on your fingernails and then get beaten in the big Pac-12 championship game and think I'm going to vote for you for Heisman. Memphis, let me ask you a serious question. I'm being serious now. I joke on here a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I'm not joking here.
Right.
Okay. The award of Heisman says that you have to have a level of integrity when you win the Heisman. A lot of people said the same thing about Cam Newton. They said the same thing about Johnny Manziel. They've said a lot of the same things about a lot of people. I mean, they said the same thing about Steve Spurrier because I went all the way back and Googled today that Steve Spurrier apparently was smoking too many cigarettes with blondes behind the football stadium. My point being is you can't write F Utah on your nails and your people calling me soft. But the bottom line is you can't beat Utah. Don't spare me that you think, oh, well, Blake's being soft. Because the truth is, Caleb, karma.
Yeah.
I got a girlfriend. Her name's Karma. Call her.
No, you can't. There's some things. And listen, I'll say this: the voting, the voters are changing. The voters are changing, but there's a lot of politics. I vote on 9 of these 25.
Quickly, can you name the stuff that you vote on, just so our listeners can know, if you don't mind?
The Outland Trophy, the Broyles Award, which we just gave away, the Bronco Nagurski Award
for Lincoln's brother, or is that too much to ask? Okay, keep going. Okay, keep going.
Or the Maxwell. What did I say?
Outland, Broyles, Maxwell,
Bronco Nagurski, Maxwell, the Remington, the Butkus, basically all of the defensive ones plus the 2 coaching ones, and the punter and the kicker. So all defensive ones, all 6 defensive ones, the punter, the kicker, 7, 8, and then the 2 coaches, the assistant coach and coach of the year, Eddie Robertson.
Was I'm gonna sound like a dumbass here, but was Mora Jr. was Jim Mora Jr. snubbed? Do you think? Was Brian Kelly or Josh Heupel snubbed? You taking this long tells me yes.
So in my mind, Brian Kelly wasn't snubbed because Brian Kelly's just doing what Brian Kelly does. I don't think Brian Kelly outdid himself this year. I think that the level of expectation that everybody set for Brian Kelly was
really good,
way too low. And I was just like, I was like, this guy never loses.
So you just weren't shocked that they won the West, is what you're trying to tell me? Is what I'm hearing you say?
No, I wasn't. I thought that was a possibility before the season started. I know everybody else didn't, but I was like, what do you think Brian Kelly's here for? He's not here for the fun of the game. I expect Brian Kelly to win at least 8 games to 10 games a year because that's what Brian Kelly does. If he's going to win the West and beat Alabama, now I didn't know if he's going to beat Alabama. I didn't know he was going to win the West, but I knew it was a possibility. If you're winning that many games in the SEC, of course you're going to be in the conversation on whether or not you win in the West, but you have to beat Alabama to do that. Year 1 beating Alabama, that's something I didn't know he was going to do. But finishing second was definitely, who's going to beat him? Texas A&M ended up beating LSU. That was something I didn't think would happen. He did beat Alabama, that was something I didn't think happened. So those wins and losses kind of flip flop. But he's kind of close to where I thought he was going to be. But yeah, I vote on pretty much. The only defensive one that I don't vote on is the defensive backs. But I do vote on the Maxwell.
The Thorpe Award.
Yeah, the Jim Thorpe. But I do vote on the Maxwell, which is basically the other Heisman. Mm-hmm. It's the best player in college football.
Makes no sense to me. But I digress. All right, last one. We'll get you out of here. I've kept you way too long anyway. I've been vocal. I'm not a TCU fan in reference to them being in the playoff because I get what you have to do in the regular season matters. But there has to come, Memphis, in my opinion, a level of eye test. Meaning, I get Tennessee doesn't have Hendon Hooker. But tell me TCU's beating South Carolina right now. Okay, that's the level of the SEC that I don't think people understand right now. Like, meaning you could, outside of Vandy, which even now, to Clark Lee, even it doesn't matter where you go week in and week out. When you hit the road, it's a problem. Truth be told, Kentucky took it to Georgia's ass up front. It was a bloodbath.
Yeah.
So my point is, I don't think that the fans keep saying who deserves this, who deserves that. I said to the point where, you're not the champion. And a 12-team playoff, Kansas State's the number 4 seed, believe it or not, which is wild in and of itself. Memphis right now, if TCU and Alabama lined up, it's of my opinion, Bama might beat them by 14.
If TCU lined up with anybody in the field, they could beat them. That's what I was telling people. Like, if Alabama gets in this,
agree with that,
win this. And that's the thing about Alabama. Alabama can have bad games. Alabama can lose games. But Alabama might – Nick Saban got on there. He wasn't kidding. Alabama might be favored in the entire playoff if they were in it.
BetOnline, our sponsor, they did a hypothetical poll between spread between Alabama and the field. They were a 1-point favorite against Michigan. It would beat everybody else. And I know betting odds don't win games, but
right.
at the end of the day, there's more people that are smarter than me deciding that have money on the line.
Absolutely. And that's just – and I get that's why we play the game, right? I mean, because there are odds. There's like, hey, you have a 60% chance to win this game or a 40% chance to win this game. But then craziness happens, right? Things that you can't predict. And that throws everything off. But Alabama could win this entire – and that's why I don't believe in the expansion. I don't. I really don't
either. I don't either.
But, I mean, if you're asking me –
shit like this happens, I do.
If there's any team that actually could have won a championship that hasn't been added, it would be Alabama this year. That team could actually win a national championship in a playoff setting. They could do it. If Hendon Hooker was healthy, Tennessee might be able to pull it off, but
they beat Michigan. A healthy Hendon Hooker beats Michigan.
That defense that Tennessee has keeps everybody else in the game, though. Though that secondary gets torched.
They do. And, they do.
I can't. It's hard for me to get behind a team that I know is not at least average at certain levels. And that secondary for Tennessee all year, they've been a little bit below average, and I think that's their Achilles heel. Everything else, they're solid up front. They protect. I'll say this, and the people started getting mad at me at this. If LSU's line blocked like Tennessee's line blocked for Hooker, they may be in the actual playoffs. That offensive line, hardly any mistakes all this year.
Yeah, Cade May is the most underrated center in the country.
Exactly.
Anyway, all right, I lied. Last one, I promise. Rick says, #Ask Memphis. I asked you what LSU's record would be with TCU's schedule, and you said 1 loss. I agree. Now let me flip that. what would TCU's record be if they had LSU schedule? They're 9-3, brother. They're 9-3,
8-4 maybe.
8-4 maybe.
Yeah, probably 8. I mean, you have to. TCU.
They don't beat Georgia. They don't beat Alabama. Okay,
look, Sonny Gray is a genius. I'll say that. But remember, this is the same team that Sonny Gray beat with SMU the prior 2 years. It's not like they're that much better than they were the past 2 years when SMU beat TCU. They changed coaches. Sonny knows those guys better than anybody else, and he was able to take the same guys that he was beating, go coach them up, and beat not only his team but everybody else in the Big 12. But they still lost to Tulane.
How do you lose? How do you lose to Kansas State and not move? That's my thing, right? Like, because then Memphis, well, Blake, Ohio State didn't even play. Well, Ohio State is not a Big 10 champion, and neither is TCU as a Big 12 champion. Memphis, I mean, Kansas State lost to Tulane. Brother,
there was a scenario
from Tulane. All right, let me say this.
There was a scenario, Blake. There was a scenario where I was going through my head, and I was just like, oh, wouldn't it be great if everybody in the playoff lost their conference championship? And because I wanted to see if they'd do it. It could have been a possibility that would have happened. And if that would have, because, they weren't putting in LSU. If LSU beat Georgia, Georgia's probably still in. If Michigan loses to Purdue,
would it be if LSU was a 2 seed at 10-3, and Kansas State would have been the 4 seed at 10-3?
I'll take LSU.
Well, under the playoff expansion, the rules dictate that the conference champion dictates seeding. You would have, get this, Georgia, number 5, playing number 12 Tulane. Tulane would get smoked.
Listen, yes, and that. Do we want to watch that?
No, actually,
that's my point. Like, why are we expanding the playoffs to games that we don't really want to see?
I do want to see Tulane play Georgia. I'm tired of those people in New Orleans talking that shit. I want to watch. Yes, I do. This year,
you want to see them get clapped, don't you?
I'm talking about double cheeked up on a Tuesday afternoon. All right, I'll get you out of here. I don't want to get you in trouble, but it's true. Memphis, they beat him by 60. If they didn't let puns intended, if they didn't call the dogs off, they beat him by 60.
I'm not going to argue with that.
Jalen Carter would not leave New Orleans because he would have multiple homicides, manslaughter. They put him in Angola for murder.
Georgia would beat down Tulane. Pretty easy, pretty simple. It's not the math ain't mathing on that one.
No,
but but we decided we wanted to expand this playoff, so you're going to get to see these games, and you'll get to see what everybody else already knows, that there are a couple of conferences, and I've said this for the last. I mean, I could see financially this was true 10 years ago, but the Big Ten and the SEC are really the only power conferences, and I've told people that, but I know people are just now seeing that, but like my circle and the boosters and the ADs and whatnot, that's why people are leaving. We're not making this up. I don't know how to tell people this. I don't know how to look, this is the truth. The reason why USC and UCLA are going to the Big Ten and Oklahoma and Texas are going to the SEC, those are the best conferences. Nobody's making $1 million moves for nothing. They're not deciding to.
Memphis, LSU won 66 million, or not won, but I guess you can say they won it. They were awarded. We got the profit and loss from LSU in 2019. They made $66 million from making the college football playoff, and not only that, winning it. So
there you go.
so when people say, "Oh my God, we got to pay $17 million to pay out Ed Orgeron," in the words of my grandmother, "Child, please," or Chad Ochocinco, "Child, please."
Chump change.
Chump
Chump
change.
change.
Chump change. All right.
Yep.
You got a beautiful family. I've kept you
You
too
too.
long. Later, buddy. Thank you.
Take care, man.
All right. That's Memphis Spence. To catch him out, Tune In Radio. My man, always killing it. All right. I went too long. Let me end the show like this. Powder Puffino says, Blake looking kind of thick tonight. Hey, crying. I know that it's you. Tell your mama to come get her pads from my house. Anywho, let me end it with this. Guys, you got to fire Dennis Allen. Got to fire Dennis Allen. I'm not going to watch the Saints when they pulled some bullshit like that anymore. Not doing it. I refuse to do it. Till tomorrow, we'll see you soon. Have a good night. Peace out. Oh, hold on, Zach. Hold on, Zach. I'm going to write something on the forum about what we kind of discussed tonight. I'm tired of getting popped with it on in the DMs. Haven't subscribed yet? Go to the forum, ayssnetwork.com. I'll do a write-up as soon as we leave here. Even though my wife will get mad, go subscribe. I'll write something up. All right. Until then, peace out, Girl Scouts.